one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this special edition of Brandon's World, whether it's 15 or 20 minutes or, a very short podcast today, but I wanted to get this out because I wanted to talk about the big bombshell media report that occurred earlier this week on Monday, and that is Skip Bayless leaving Undisputed. Now, you guys know last year we covered it when Shannon Sharp was leaving Undisputed. And in case you are new, because we've had so much growth here at Brandon's World during the past year, one of the reasons why I got into this business, one of the reasons why I have this podcast today is because of this man that's behind me in my virtual background, Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless, regardless of how people feel about his takes on the Dallas Cowboys, on LeBron James, on whoever, one of the things I've admired the most about Skip is he keeps it real. There is no sugarcoating. You know, I could vastly disagree with something Skip says, and sometimes I think he says things that are so out there, but the bottom line is he believes every single word he says. He believes in this job, he believes in sports, he grinds for it. He's talked about for years about the fact that, he wouldn't get into a relationship because he is so dedicated to this job. And when he met his current wife, Ernestine, he told her flat out his career comes first. And he watches every dribble of every NBA game, and he watches every pass and every play of an NFL game. The man is obviously so dedicated to this craft. And, really, he started the embrace debate format. And again, I'm one of these people that come out here and I say whatever's on my mind. You guys know I don't sugarcoat it. You guys know I love talking sports. You guys know I love giving my opinion. And you guys also know I love it when people give their opinion back to me. Whether it's I've had guests on the pod or whether it's, in the comment section below interacting with you guys, which now would be a good time to say that on audio now, Spotify with podcasters, aka formerly known as Anchor, does have comments now that can go on Apple, that can go on Spotify, etc. So if you want to leave a comment on the audio version, you can, and I will respond back to you. But again, I've always embraced debate. It's one of the reasons why me and Josh Unger every Tuesday night, which I was not there on Tuesday night due to a prior commitment. It was my first ever championship rings I had ever missed. Shout out to Chris, aka C Boss Gaming, who we have brought on a few times on that show. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to start a debate show. I was waiting for the perfect partner, and Josh Unger became that perfect partner. And why we embrace debate is because of Skip Bayless. Before the Brandon's World podcast, I was on Black Squirrel Radio, obviously, hosting this Brandon's World as a radio show where I would embrace debate. And again, part of that is because of Skip Bayless. Everything I say, the way I act, the way I talk, some of that has to do with watching Skip over the years, which, for the record, the great impressionist Josh Rosen does the best impression of Skip I had ever heard. But again, regardless how you feel about, the current sports media landscape, whether it's FS1, ESPN, debate style shows, talk style shows like the Earth with Colin Coward, First Things First, Get Up, what have you. As the internet has sort of transformed, Skip, I thought, had found a way to stay relevant. And again, regardless how you feel about his breakup with Shannon Sharp, which we can all acknowledge, some of the things that Skip said should have never been said. And regardless how you feel about Stephen A. and Skip's run at First Take or Skip's run with Shannon at Undisputed, I don't think Skip Bayless is done. I don't think Skip Bayless is an idiot. I think Skip Bayless, again, is a pioneer. And again, you can disagree with whatever takes you want. You can say Skip's an idiot, Skip doesn't know what he's talking about, yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is, if it wasn't for Skip Bayless, I probably would not be here today. The sports media landscape and the way that we love and the way that we talk about sports would not be the way it is today without that man, Skip Bayless. And so I will appreciate everything he does. Again, I've always liked Skip. I always said that he is the one Dallas Cowboy fan who I will obviously like, who I listen to. I think his takes are funny. And again, I don't think he's done. I know he's doing the podcast order with the Skip Bayless show, which who knows what happens to that with FS1. We know that Undisputed has gone in the tank ever since Skip left Shannon Sharp. And again, maybe it's just the fact that, over the past 20 years, sometimes, this style, this debate format that Undisputed has gone under, ever since bringing in Michael Irvin and Keyshawn Johnson and Rachel Nichols and Paul Pierce, maybe it's just outdated. And maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time for Skip and Stephen A to reunite, which I do have a theory on that when it comes to ESPN, is I personally don't feel like that Stephen A. Smith wants to reunite Skip and Shannon on First Take, because for Undisputed, when it was in their heyday with Skip and Shannon, was rivaling Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman at First Take. And again, maybe it's because of Shannon's popularity, but Skip is one of the reasons why Stephen A is where he's at today. Skip is one of the reasons why Shannon Sharp is where he's at today. He was saving both men from potentially being fired and not being on network television. Stephen A still at ESPN, and then obviously Shannon Sharp, when he left CBS, he was out of the media world until he came back to Fox Sports. Now, both of those guys have given the platform that Skip started for them and turned them into a giant medium and have sort of grown up from Skip. But I think Skip and Shannon were the perfect duo on Undisputed. You had a former athlete who could talk about basketball, who could talk about baseball, who could talk about football, talk about all these different sports in such a unique way to deal with Skip's combativeness. And we all know Skip knows every stat about every game in his head. So that's my theory. I don't know where Skip is going to land after this. Again, I don't know if he's going to be some independent. I don't know if he's going to do a podcast on his own, but I think Skip is going to find some place somewhere. And I think sometimes it was inevitable, obviously, after the divorce from Shannon Sharp. The new Undisputed has not worked out well in terms of viewership. Sometimes we all just need a new, fresh start, a new beginning. Again, whether that's going back to ESPN, reuniting with Stephen A. and Shannon, which it sounds like that's not in the cards, which again, if I had to guess, is a Stephen A. thing, not necessarily an ESPN thing, because Stephen A. does control all aspects of First Take. But the bottom line is to disrespect Skip Bayless, to say that he doesn't belong in the media industry, to say he's too old, yada, 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 to me is nonsense. He is the pioneer of sports debate. He is the reason why I have championship rings. He is the reason why I have this podcast. So even though you guys, again, a lot of you probably, that watch this podcast or listen to it probably don't agree with Skip, I want you today to acknowledge Skip, because if you like me, if you like listening to my takes, you can thank Skip Bayless for that happening, and I'll be very interested to see what happens next, as now FS1 goes into a new era, a Skip Bayless less era. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.